Greatness. Greatness. Bow, bow, bow. Greatness.
There are 2 times to be great: when you feel like it and when you don't. Welcome to the Renewing the Mind podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Sanchez, and with me is my dad, Dr. Raul Sanchez. How you doing, Dad?
I'm feeling great. Like back in the day at North Dakota State in the locker room, we had a saying: those who stay will play. Those who play will be champions. Once a champion, always a champion.
And there's the ring kiss.
Let's go, baby.
On this podcast, we teach you how to flip your mindset by talking through our 3 pillars, which are renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation. If you missed last week's episode, you can head over to any platform. We got approved on all of them.
Amen.
Some good news. So we're on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you can find podcasts across the nation and worldwide. Or you can head over to YouTube and watch the video version of this podcast by searching Renewing the Mind podcast. We got some other videos there: 6 stages of change.
Yes, that's a
contrast
great one.
at Christmas if you lost a loved one. Last week we talked about what to do if you already failed in 2020. How to keep your resolutions.
And that failure isn't actually ending.
Exactly. And if you
Just a
failed,
reboot.
2020 is not an L. You
Correct.
can get back up and
Correct.
keep fighting. Before we jump into today's content, we have a segment we like to call our WHAT moment.
What?
A WHAT is an acronym for what's awesome about that.
Okay, 2013, we moved to Renew the Mind Clinic. And right away we start praying because the Lord told me that we're going to grow Renew the Mind Clinic. So we start praying for people, and I don't remember exactly dates, but up until 3 years ago, we basically interviewed 4 people, and all 4 of them, basically, I kind of pushed through because I thought it was good, and it didn't happen. So as good as I think I am at like vetting people, understanding personality, stuff like that, it just didn't work. And the oddest thing is, so we're a Christian-based office, and some people just said, I'm not, I believe and I'm a Christian, but I'm not going to pray with people. And that was just a thing that was one of those no's, but I kind of pushed through it, like, oh, they'll develop it. Anyways, it didn't work. So 3 years ago, I finally decided, Lord, I'm going to throw my hands up. I'm not going to interview another person. If somebody seeks us out, we'll go through the process.
Yep.
And so there's only been 2 people, a person who was from Florida and then didn't work out, and then a person from Ohio, and basically sent us an email from an ad that we run once in a while, and interviewed with Stacy first. Stacy liked her, interviewed with me. I liked her. We brought her in for a 2-day visit. We just clicked, all of it. And so by the end of that time, we made her an offer, and she didn't know. She said she would love to, but she wanted to pray about it. So she went home, she prayed with her pastor.
It's always the godly answer.
Correct.
I'm going to pray about it.
So that's a plus, right? But, you never know. Like, is that just a saying? And her answer, she just
Like
said,
when someone asks you to move their furniture on Saturday.
Yeah.
And help fill their U-Haul.
Let me pray about it.
That's my go-to answer. Let me pray about it.
Let me pray about it. Let me pray to see if the truck's
Yeah,
open.
let me pray about it. See
Yeah,
what that says.
truck might be taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that because, like, you never know. Like, is it just a cliche answer? But then she says, she's like, I want to pray for a week and then meet with my pastor. I want to pray for another week and meet with my mentor. And then she's like, if that's okay with you guys. So we said, sure. So basically, she sends us an email after those 2 weeks and says, hey, I feel like this is an answer to prayer. And what's crazy about that is Stacy and I feel like she's an answer to prayer, right? So what's awesome about that moment is for 3 years, we didn't seek anybody out. One other person sought us, and then only her. And the amazing thing about her side of the story is she would get on at lunch and just look at jobs, on like the National Association of Christian Counselors and whatever, Christian jobs. And and there would just be too many of them sometimes. She'd be overwhelmed, wouldn't look at it. And then one day she looks and there's one job posted, which is Renew the Mind Clinic. She didn't believe it, so she refreshed it again, it's still us. And so she went, I'll send an email. So it's crazy. So she believes like God cleared all the mess and just put us up front.
Yep.
And so that's kind of how we believe. So last night, and Pastor Johnny's been with us the whole way, praying us through, so he understands. And so we got to introduce Lisa to Pastor Johnny last night at church, and that full circle comes through about just, staying on your knees and praying and waiting. So what's awesome about not being able for me as a Christian psychologist to find another person to come in is when I moved out of the way, God stepped up.
Yep.
So that's awesome. What?
Isn't that isn't that kind of like a life lesson though? Like when we trudge through and try to just say, if doors closed, I'll kick them open. I'll just bull my way through.
Correct.
And in reality, we have to say, well, maybe that stopped for a reason. And that was a 3-year wait
Correct.
for God to open the door, which is God's timing, not yours.
Correct.
That's difficult.
Right. It's very difficult because, look, we all, in our strength, we want to push through. We want to kick doors down. Do you know what I mean? People, like,
Yep.
especially like The Rock says, you know, hey, when opportunity knocks, you kick the blankety blank door down, right? I mean, I get that. There's like, okay, that's
Well, there's
weight
moments
room.
for that.
Yeah, there's moments for that. That's like weight room stuff.
Yeah.
But like for me, knowing how to do this, like that's my strength. Like, okay, God, be with me, but I got it.
I think it comes
And
down
when
to...
I didn't have it, you know,
I think it's less about what to do and making sure that God tells you to do. So there's moments where God says, kick the door down, but God told you to do that.
Correct.
Or you feel like that's God leading you in that direction.
correct. The point is, even when I don't know how to, or I've messed it up, I'm 0 for 4, God still comes through.
Hey, if you got a Watt moment, let us know in the comments below. Also, if anything from last couple weeks or this week during the show talks to you, or you got a question or anything, comments, we've got a lot of personal messages, just people saying like, wow, this really spoke to me, or this is really timely. We've got some questions on, hey, could you guys talk about this topic? So if you got some topics we'd like to discuss in future shows, let us know in the comments.
And if you want more on a topic, like
Yeah.
today's on relationships, you're probably going to want more. So just let us know.
Perfect.
It'll just help direct us. We've got a list of shows coming, but just direct us also.
Sweet. So this week we're talking about how to win relationships, whether you're single, married, dating. This is platonic relationships. I mean, a lot of these three things can apply to any relationship, right?
Correct.
So we're jumping into it today. You're going to walk us through your IDK, which is intent, darts, and knight in shining armor. So you want to walk us through, just give us a brief overlay of those three, and then we'll jump into intent.
Okay, so the brief overview is I don't know. Okay, so I is intent. So intent stands for basically like what's the purpose? Okay, make sure it's positive. The next one is darts. No darts. Don't do digs and stabs and stuff like that,
Okay.
even in an argument. The last one is be the knight in shining armor. Always work toward rescuing the emotional moment. If you can figure out that the IDK, I don't know, what happens is you actually win.
All right, let's dig a little deeper. Explain intent a little more.
Okay, so intent. The purpose of intent is like your motive. Your big. We always talk about the big why that makes you fly. So the number one problem that happens if somebody does something to someone in a relationship, the person tries to interpret the brain. Like, why did Tyler do that? He must be mad at me. And boom, we're in a fight. The first point is, okay, try to figure out positive intent. So there are 2 times to accept positive intent: when you feel like it and when you're ticked. Because that's super hard. Like, if you can get to that point, you're amazing.
Always.
Always, right? So, and you can go through all kinds of scenarios. Like, hey, do you want to go out to eat? I don't care. Right there. People are fighting. So what, you don't care about me? Wait, whoa, time out. I just said I don't care. What does that mean? It means I don't know.
Right.
And you get into a little argument, get into a little frustration just because of that simple word. The idea of, I don't care. It's like, okay, so what do you care about? Like, frozen pizza, going out for pizza? What do you want to do? You just keep working around the positive intent instead of taking that personally. So the example I like to use for this one is like, okay, so your wife is working late. Let's pretend she's a nurse. You're at home. You're hanging out. You're expecting her to come back. You're going to talk. Normally, you guys circle up and talk at night. She texts and says, hey, I got to stay a little later. Person's going to be 2 hours late. So she's got to like pick up half shift, something like that. You're in bed, just kind of sitting up, reading. You catch a second wind because you want to stay up for your wife. So what happens is you start looking around the room and you're like, oh, man, you know what? I'm going to help her out because this weekend we're going to do this rearrange into our bedroom. So you get up, you catch your second wind. If you're Tyler, you pound a Monster. You know, if you're me, you might drink some green tea.
Yuck.
And all of a sudden you just get motivated, right?
Okay.
You just start moving around, moving furniture, switching everything around, vacuum, dust, do everything, hang pictures. And you're sitting back looking at like, bro, look what I just did. I just did this. So you're staying up, but she still ain't coming. Dim the lights, start to go to sleep, and all of a sudden you fall asleep. So she comes in, she realizes you're asleep. Her positive intent is, I don't want to wake him up. So she tips through the house, tiptoes, you know, drops off her stuff. You know, she's undressing like on the way to the room because she doesn't want to mess you up. She's heading toward the closet and boom, stubs her toe. Boom, hits the, you know,
everything's
the
up.
dresser. Everything's moved all over the
Changed,
place.
yeah.
So she gets mad, starts screaming. And then the husband gets up and is like, babe, look what I did for you. He's like, what do you mean you did for me? Like, how could you do this to me? And instantly negative intent. Like, how could you ruin my room? How could you wreck me? right? And then he gets up all hurt, and the first thing he says is, "What do you mean? Look what I did for you. How can you be so disrespectful? How can you be so selfish?" And they both take this selfish position to yell at each other. Yep. And neither one has a moment of time to even ask, "Why didn't you turn the lights on?" Well, why did you move the furniture? Okay? So the positive intent is, if you're the husband, when she's freaking out, instead of getting mad, just go, "Wait, time out. Is there a reason? Is there a positive reason why she would have left the lights off?" And that's a pretty simple question. Like, okay, answer one question. How come you didn't turn on the lights? It's like, "Babe, you're sleeping. I was trying not to wake you up." Okay? And then at that moment, you circle up and you nurture. So there's a hug. And then instantly, all the anger, all the selfishness just dies. On her standpoint, boom, she stubs her toe. Boom, she hits her arm. She's mad. She yells. He jumps up. She can say, "Wait, time out. What made you want to do this?" It's like, we got a big to-do list on Saturday. My truck, I got to check with
he's
God.
just trying to help
truck
out.
might be getting borrowed. Nate's asking me to help him move. I'm just trying to get stuff done. Yep. And then she realizes that and says, "Oh, so you're doing this to get us a head start." Yeah, if we get a head start, we can finish early. I was, thinking about some Jerry's Pizza. Okay, what happens is then you soften the heart because you understand the motive, the positive intent. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Like, instantaneously, because of how we're all like harsh and brash because of all the like bullying we've taken over the years, just being a normal student. The second someone says something, we gear up. We put on our shield.
Defense
and
mechanisms.
we defend ourselves. Yep. We want to push away. And so some of us are like, we just walk away and get hurt. Some of us will throw darts and yell and scream, and we get in a fight. But either way, we're all kind of wrecked because we're hanging on to a negative intent, which is, he did this to wreck me, or he did this to make me look like a fool, or she doesn't respect me. I do everything around here, and she doesn't even care. And both of those are negative intent, and it puts you in a really bad spot.
I know me and Alicia, when we first got married, this was a huge one for us because obviously I'm a little bit forgetful, you know what I'm saying? And so she would say like, "Hey, before I come home, do the laundry or, unload and reload the dishwasher." And I would forget, I'm blaming on video games or, anyways.
Monster Energy drink wearing off.
Yeah. And so she would come home and say like things like, "Why would you not remember what I said?" And she took it so personal that it was, like I put video games above her and decided. And really it just came down to, I forgot, just pure and simple. And so what I kept asking her a lot was like, "Hey, do you really think that I remembered and then said, no, I love video games more," or whatever else I was doing, playing basketball or just fell asleep on the couch, and we went to the first marriage conference 3 years ago and heard this. And that really flipped a switch in our marriage to be able to say like, anytime I fail, or because that was a tried fail, right? But the opposite is also true. If you just forget, her first inclination was that I remembered and said that's not important.
Correct. See, because
in reality, I just forgot. Like, remember that I'm your husband and that I love you and vice versa. And that if I remembered, I would have done it, but I did forget, which is my fault. But at least put a little bit of positive on that I didn't do it intentionally to say like, I'm not doing what you told me to do.
Correct. So in that moment, just like you said, from the coach's standpoint, on the other one, you can at least have positive intent because well, he tried. He rearranged the room. In this scenario, as the coach, like, you didn't even get up. You didn't even try. Like, what do you mean? So on Alicia's side, it's easier to have negative intent because there's no effort.
Right. So you have to have it for both.
But you have to have it for both. Yep. Correct. So both situations, you still come back and say, "Okay, so explain to me, how come you forgot? Like, what was your motive? I mean, what were you doing?" Yep. And you just explain, boom, 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 I just got too busy.
Sweet.
You could say like, I was dominating,
Right.
Squad was like, come on.
A squad, you can't end on a win. You can't end on a heater.
Right.
All right, so intent, next one in IDK is darts.
Yes. So
we were talking about this last night's dream. I was dreaming that we were playing darts, but the darts were like this big, dude. So you had to throw them like, it was wild. It's because I was thinking about the topics today.
So you had to like over your head like a tomahawk?
Yes, it was the weirdest thing. Because I also was going to bed thinking about the axe throwing place that just opened up here in Sioux City.
Yes.
So it was like a mixture of an axe throw and a dart. It was wild. Anyways, darts.
Darts. Okay, so a dart, people ask this a lot. Like a dart, like what is a dart? Like why do you have the dart? Well, I mean, I like arrows, right? So I mean, it comes that way. But also, when you think about like a dart, like something that sticks into you. So like as you can see this in the video, but you won't be able to see it. But like if I stick a pin in me and I hold it, like you can see it stays. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, you could get the visual imagery that a dart sticks into the board, but
Sticks in the board.
some of it's in the board and most of it's out.
Correct.
You can still see
So
it.
the part that you can see is out, okay? But when you remove the part that's out, like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. You know, my tongue is kind of just goes too fast. Like, I got to tame my own tongue. So you remove the dart, okay? That piece, the long, skinny silver piece, is stabbed inside of you. So a dart is a dig. It's a low blow. And in a lot of cases, especially with me, it's a dart is bringing up the past to prove the future is going to fail. So I would say something to Stacy when she'd say, we're going to do it like this. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, how'd that work for you last time?
Right.
And then she'd just run and slam the door. And I'd be like,
And
oh.
in that same imagery, there's usually a little hole in the dartboard, even when you remove the dart.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a lasting impact.
Correct. So what happens here is like if you stab the paper, and then you can do this at home, but if you stab the paper and just look over the top of it, like the part that the dart entered is pretty smooth.
Yep.
The part that's on the back side of it, you can see all the flaring, you know, just like if you, like
an
a bullet,
exit wound.
An exit wound. And you can see, like when you shoot a BB gun through a can, all that metal flares out like that. And so that's the part that's inside. And so the crappy part about emotional wounds is, number one, they're hard to pinpoint. So an emotional wound comes out as like general negativity. So if I break my elbow, right, I get it reset and I'm in a cast, people can physically see I'm injured.
Which I did. That's awful.
So like you can see where the injury is, and people give you attention for it.
And you can pinpoint it. You can say, this hurts right
You can
here.
pinpoint it, and people tell you. You can
Yep.
explain it. So you get a lot of attention for it, and then people say, I'm praying for you. They sign their name on it, whatever. They give you some cards. If you're emotionally wounded, nobody knows. So how can you tell somebody's emotionally wounded? Well, they're those toxic people that all of us want to avoid. And the reason they're toxic is because they haven't identified the pain. And so it just spins all over the place. It's just all over. They can be mad about this, mad about that. They're just moody. They're just all over the place. And really, they have some unmet needs that are covered up by wounds, okay? So those darts are internal. You know my past, but a lot of people don't. But I was literally beat with a wire hanger sometimes, and he would miss, not hit my butt, but he would hit my legs. And I remember going to the pool at Cook Park, running my hand down the back of my legs to see if I had welt marks because people would ask me. So I just like sag and bag my shorts a little bit so you couldn't see it. Okay, so like that's a physical wound, but it'll heal. And the reason is like, I don't even know. 2 years later, I remember like, yeah, I got whooped, but I don't remember the pain.
It's not a lasting image.
It's not a lasting pain.
Well, for most
The
people.
lasting pain is when literally he would tell me to take my A back to Mexico because nothing good comes out of Mexico, stuff like that. And I'm like, bro, I was born in Texas. And he's like, well, you snuck over here. He didn't like Mexicans, and so he made me feel that all the time. Those are the pieces, like calling me a dirty Mexican, like those pieces don't heal very well. So when people would call me a Mexican or something, I'd beat them up and get kicked out of the boys club. Like I'd take out that pain over here onto somebody here because it's an emotional wound.
Yep.
So now in a relationship, these darts aren't as heavy because it's not like a father figure, but they're heavy because it's a loved one. And when they penetrate, they leave a deep mark that you can't heal. And so they have to heal from internally. They have to be able to go back to that positive intent. They have to go back to that thing, and you say, okay, so what is the positive intent when somebody says, oh, yeah, you're going to succeed like you failed last time? There's no positive intent in that. It's 100%
It
negative.
was 100% meant to hurt you.
Correct. So people ask all the time, like, hey, doc, I got stuck here. Like, what do I do? I'm like, okay, I get it. There's no positive intent. But remember what I said up front? There's 2 times to choose positive intent, when you feel like it and when you're mad, when you're in hate mode.
Yep.
And here's the idea. How could somebody say something so harsh to somebody they love? The answer is they're broken. They're broken. So when you see a broken kid say something, we just kind of like, it's okay, buddy. And we kind of try to nurture them a little bit, okay? When you see your spouse who's comes at you really harsh, or a girlfriend, or you're the person who's throwing darts, you got to ask a question like, why am I broken? Like, where's that pain come from? And if you start to identify, again, the motive, the intent, you start to figure it out. And with me and Stacy back in the day, she would say stuff like she's an outside thinker, like she thinks aloud.
Oh, yes, we know.
Right. And so I'd be working, especially, with me and dyslexia, trying to read, try to reread, trying to triple read, quadruple read. And she's just talking. And I'm like, can you just shut up? Because I can hear it, but I can't. And she comes in the kitchen, she's like, what's your problem? I'm like, my problem, I'm trying to study. And then she was like, why are you yelling? I'm like, you're in there talking like you're talking to some ghost. And then it's just like, and then what happens is she would just say stuff like, you just need to get over it. I'm like, yeah, I get over you or something, And I would be like, yeah, like you did that last time. And I'm really good at bringing up the past to wound her. And so sometimes she would just run away. She would just wouldn't talk to me.
Yep.
And it takes a long time for me to start reading and just sit there and like, what is wrong with me?
I think the biggest thing for darts for me is to go back and understand that sometimes you say things out of emotion and out of anger in the moment.
Right.
And they might be true, but the reason that they were said, or the reason that the dart was thrown, was to hurt you in the moment, but that was out of a rash decision to be mean and have emotion. So the positive intent I always pull back is like, she actually does love me, and that was just a moment thing, even though it's true and even though it hurts. The positive intent for me is that she does love me. We do have a good relationship, and in that moment, she took advantage of that anger, because I've done that before. You know, where you say things and it's like, okay, I know what I said is true, but it's not what it's not how I feel. It was in the moment. I said it on purpose to be mean, you know?
Yeah, correct.
I think that comes back to communication too. I know one of the biggest things for me and Alicia was, and this is probably a question more than anything, is when's the right time to sit and hash it out when darts are being thrown, rather than to say like, hey, let's pause, take a break. Because for me, I wanted to talk like immediately. As soon as we got in a fight, let's sit down, let's talk this out, let's hash it out. And she's like, I'm done. And she would go into the room, like, let's not talk about this forever. And so then I would go into the room and be like, no, we're talking about this.
Door's closed,
yeah.
bro.
And she's like, no, we're not talking about this. She would go to the living room.
Closed.
And then I'd go in the living room. No,
Yeah.
we're talking about this, you know. And so how do you navigate that? The difference between in those moments of throwing darts to say pause, we're going to say things we don't mean, let's back away. How long is too far to back away? What's the time frame?
Yeah, the answer is I don't know. I don't know.
Why are you on this show?
I got nothing. You go back to the I don't know, which is always starts with I, me. Why did that hurt me? Why am I mad? Why am I trying to chase her down? Like, why can't I respect her shutting the door? Why can't I give her a little space? And you start to sit down and figure out why you're trying to fix it. And when you try to figure out you again, collect the data on you, you'll realize that the reason you reacted is because she hit a button. She hit a button. Like, if she's yelling at you like you're playing the video games, like you forgot me, you don't care about me. It's not that you don't care about her. She knows you love her, but maybe she hit a button like, dang, I did play like for 2 hours. I was dominating though. Like, look at my KD ratio, bro.
Right.
You know? Okay. So for me, that what happened was that I started pushing darts and Stacey would push away. That loneliness kind of broke me, because I would try to go to her and she needed time or whatever. I try to hug her. She wouldn't be, you know, so she didn't want that. And so now I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what if she left me? What if I'm not enough? Like, and those kind of pieces start to kind of fly through your head. And what happens is you got to go do some work, man. You got to really excavate out that pain. And so for me, I started going to run. And those moments when she wouldn't let me in, she shut the door, you're in there, she's reading books to you. I'm not going to go in there and fight with you. We're up at North Dakota State. I could run for days. I'd just go run. I'd run until I really couldn't breathe. And I would come back and I would shower. And then after a couple hours, she'd be like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. You okay? And then we would kind of just avoid the fight. We'd just be okay. And then normally at nighttime, Stacey can't go to bed when somebody's mad at her or she's mad, you know, this.
Yep.
And then she would lean over and hand me like a sheet of like 10 scriptures. And sometimes she would say, we need
Pray
to pray
about this. That's
yeah.
what she said.
So no, she'd say, honey, we need to pray about this. But every single verse is about like your anger. Don't let go down on your anger. Don't let the sun go down. I'm just like, she's drilling me. She's drilling me. So in my head and my heart, I'm like, I'm trying to get mad because like it's always my fault, right? And I would say 90% of the time it's my fault. Because from my past, I want to fight. Her past, she wants to solve it.
But at least in that moment, you didn't throw darts. You removed yourself.
Well, because so I noticed, I mean, I figured out, I knew for a fact I never wanted to hit Stacey. I knew for a fact I never wanted that on my record mentally, just like never touch her, lay a hand on her. Facts being known, she punched me, scratched me, like she went crazy on me, but just saying.
You probably deserved it.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When I would come back
We're not saying that's something you should do. Don't do that. But
no,
you did deserve it.
I mean, I deserved it. And, you know, honestly, it's like you used to say as a kid, your mom would spank you and you'd laugh. You're like, honestly, mom spankings don't hurt.
Yeah, I did that once and I never said that again because then you came home.
Yeah. I play cleanup.
It didn't hurt, huh?
Yeah, that's correct. Mr. Miyagi. Yeah. Get some heat coming up here, brother. Yeah, so what happened is she smacked me and stuff like that, and she'd scratch me and she would yell and scream. And then I would just go run because I just knew I had no other way. I had no words. I knew I'm not going to throw darts.
Yeah, but that's a learning process, though. You learn how to handle it.
Absolutely.
You moved away. I remember when
Absolutely.
I was 16, went to College World Series, and I stayed up the night before playing video games. You told me not to. We went to the College World Series, sat in the sun all day.
Because I told you the one thing you can't do is what?
is crash.
You can't fall asleep.
Yeah, you can't fall asleep in the car. So I
Yes.
went with my buddies to the College World Series, 16 years old. On the way home, we're all exhausted, watched a doubleheader play in the sun, and there's 4 of us in the car. 2 of them fell asleep. No lie, getting on the on-ramp from Omaha, hour and a half drive. We just finished McDonald's. They are falling 5 minutes into the ride. So me and my other buddy make it the whole way home. Anoa hits. He starts falling asleep. I don't wake him up. And I end up falling asleep in the car, crash. By the grace of God and a miracle, I run into the back of a semi, basically busted out the whole front bumper of our car.
It was like a sardine can just split open from the driver's side mirror all the way to like the bumper.
I get home. I call you. You say, is anyone hurt? No. Can you drive home? I said, yeah. So I drove home. I parked in the driveway.
I partially did believe you because you always prank us.
Yeah. My buddies got out of the car. You asked them individually, are you okay? They said,
hugged
yeah.
them. Hugged
You
them and
hugged
asked
them. You
them.
said, God protected you. You said, let your parents know. If they have any questions, they can call me. And then you said, Tyler, go to your room. And then you took our dog, put your running shoes on, and took off running.
I ran 5 miles.
I was like, what should I do here? So I opened the door. I was like, Mom, how long should I stay? She's like, just close the door, stay in there. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I got home, I fed Toro, threw some balls with Toro, whatever. And
calm
Stacey
down
came
a
out-
little bit.
Stacey came out and talked to me and just helped me see, God protected you. You're 16. Everybody's healthy. No one's going to sue us. Like all those things, all those like what's awesome about those moments.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have at that time. So, but it's that getting away and flooding my brain with positive.
Yeah, but what I'm
neurochemicals.
saying, because of that gave you. This is not just applied to romantic relationships.
Correct.
This is for
Father, son. Absolutely.
Friend to friend.
Absolutely.
Any type of relationships when you're about to say something you don't want to say or you shouldn't say, separate yourself, give it some moments, but then there has to be a moment we come back. That's what me and Alicia finally got to.
Mm-hmm.
She always wanted to leave, and I'm like, well, tell me a time frame, because that was hurt in my past relationships in high school and college where we would, me and my girlfriend would fight, and she would just leave, and we would never discuss it ever again. She
Right.
wouldn't answer my phone calls. She wouldn't respond to my text messages. 24 hours later, she would just say, hey, you want to go to dinner? And nothing was ever discussed about it.
Right.
So that's what that sent me back into. So I was like, okay, if you need your time, I get that, but give me a time frame. So I'm not just out here sitting on the couch waiting for, could be up to 5-6 hours. you know?
So like our family time, like circle up, like let's get to
Yeah.
get in a
So
circle.
tell me, okay, I need
Let's huddle.
an hour and a half, and then
Correct.
we'll come back and talk about it. Then I'm not just sitting there outside the door like,
Yeah, correct.
is it time to talk now?
Correct.
Or
That's a great point, because what happens to a lot of, especially men who want to talk now, or women who want to talk now,
Yeah, 'cause it could go both ways.
It could go both ways. The processor, the one who goes and slams the door and hides because they're processing, they take a lot longer to kind of come to a conclusion, and they need time. Okay, so the processor needs that time, but the chaser eventually gets weary. So you knock on the door, you send her a text, you send her some fun emojis, you make her eggs or something, you cook for her, and she's still mad. At some point, she's ready, and you're like, nah, I'm mad now.
that's exactly what happened.
Correct.
She really
And
likes
then-
talking now. I'm like, no, I try to talk now. I'm playing video games.
100%.
We talk after this.
Yes.
Cool.
And now, so you go back into that dart back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this is why people say talking doesn't work, because they never actually set a time to circle up and really, really get on the positive intent side of that. Okay. So the darts ruin people. So no darts, absolutely no darts.
So positive intent. Don't throw darts.
Yep.
Collect the data. Figure out when you can talk where darts aren't being thrown.
Make a decision to circle
And
up.
then, so the K, knight in shining armor.
Yeah, so the knight in shining armor is basically a rescuer. So a knight in shining armor, back in the day, rides in on the horse, saves, his damsel in distress or something like that. But in this case, it can also be the woman. And so if you're listening to this and you're a woman who's married, or you're engaged, or you're in a serious dating relationship, I want you to understand something, that your man, underneath his tough armor, is a little boy. And inside that little boy is some hurt, some pain, some wounds. And our society sucks at letting boys cry, at letting boys mourn, at letting boys talk through things. We only do this at youth camp once a year, where boys can get serious with each other. We only do this when people are fishing, and every now and then you get in a serious conversation, but it doesn't happen. It's just not there. So you have to remember that these are wounds, okay, and that boys need to be rescued. And boys who are men now still need to be rescued. So what that look like? That looks like when they're in pain, you just come up and grab their hand. When they're mad, if they're the processor, you just walk in there and you're like, hey, is there a time we can meet? You just hold their hand. You're like, I love you. I'll always be here for you. A saying is like, I'm always in your corner. It's a good saying. I'm always going to be here. and then you sort of pull away, and that just enough, just a small little rescue to let them know, okay. But the concept of rescuing is you have to step in when somebody's really, really wounded. And what if they don't want to? What if they don't want to hear it? My thing is like love covers all, because that's scriptural, right? Love covers a multitude of sin. That's scriptural. So the concept for me is, how do you demonstrate love? And the answer is nurturance. So you nurture. So what does that look like? And the best story I can tell you is this is the first time I've ever felt it. And at that time, I didn't know what it was called, but I would just put it on. Back then, I called it being on my side. Like, you need somebody in your corner. You need somebody on your side. So back in our freshman year of NDSU, our first year of marriage also, that was
Freshman year of college.
I'm sorry. Yeah, freshman year of college,
Yep.
freshman year of marriage. Okay, so it's a year first for us. We fought all the time. I just got to explain how this works.
And
But
you
what-
had a 2.5-year-old.
we had a 2.5-year-old. So there was a lot going on, man. We both got school stress, like that. You know, we're on a low budget. But we really fought over past stuff, emotional stuff, and especially me throwing darts. If Stacy said something that was right on, like, why are you going to play, frisbee tag or something?
What's frisbee tag?
Not frisbee tag. What's it called? Frisbee golf. Disc golf. There you go. Disc golf. Yeah.
Got it.
And then they called it ultimate football, frisbee football.
Yeah.
So I mixed those up together.
Yeah.
But so
I
anyway,
don't know if that was a game you guys played back in the olden days where you rode horses and stuff.
yeah, no, frisbee football. So
Okay.
ultimate frisbee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I got
sorry,
them all.
continue.
I clashed those two
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah.
Okay, so she'd be like, "Why are you going to play, ultimate frisbee?
Yep.
When you've got to study?" And so she was right. And so I just let it go. Said, so go and come back. And then she'd be like, so, what are you going to do if you don't get the grade you need? You have to keep your scholarship up. And she would just say that stuff. She's just an out loud thinker. Instead of just like going in the kitchen and
I mean,
cook-
some of them are right on.
she's 100% spot on. But instead of just like going to the kitchen or going somewhere and sitting down and just thinking it, like if she's doing something like that, I'd think it, but I wouldn't say it. But since she's a processor out loud, I didn't know that at the time. She just thinks aloud. She's always talking. Even when she doesn't even know what to do, she's talking. And I would take those things personally. So then eventually I'd snap and get up and be like, you think you're so good, blah, 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 just hammer. And then, and one time in our biggest fight ever, she like ripped a shirt, scratched me, whatever. She was mad because I threw some hard darts and I wounded her pretty hard. And then she was like, get out, get out. And then I started walking. She literally threw a running shoe, hit me in the head. Like
Probably didn't hurt.
We talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, just more like wounded my ego more than anything.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you're lucky you're a girl. Like, that's what I said. And I just get my shoes and I just go run. But before I was getting my clothes to change, she starts bawling. I hear her on the phone with Fran. And I hear
Her
she's
mom?
like, yeah, her mom. Yeah, good. Yeah. So Fran's my mother-in-law. And she's saying, I'm coming home. Like, come get me. And she's screaming. She's bawling. So I take off and I go run. And I ran for a long time, a few hours. I come back and the house is quiet. She's watching TV. She's got you on her lap, and you guys are watching one of your silly cartoon dancing shows. We're going to do an episode on that, by the way.
It's not proven.
Like childhood soap opera.
It's
with
not
mom.
proven. It's not proven.
True. Okay, I take it back.
There's no record.
Scratch that, Nate. Scratch
There's
that.
no record of.
Okay,
watching
so you
soap
guys are
operas.
So you guys are chilling, watching TV. I go upstairs because I'm just like there's nothing to say, right? I mean, I don't know. So I go upstairs, start undressing, getting ready to shower. And in my shower is where I'd process. In my shower is where I'd literally cry. In my shower is where I'd cry out to Jesus. I listen to Christian music, and I'm trying to understand a God who cares for me after all the failures that I've had. I see there's no suitcase because she was getting a suitcase out. I see everything's put away. I look up, the suitcases are put back. I'm like, I'm confused. Not sure. So I go in and I pray and I ask God to forgive me. I'm looking for that I issue. Like, I don't know. Like, what is it with me? Why is it always about me? What's wrong with me? So I stay in that I piece. And I'll just start bawling because I know I was wrong. So I come downstairs ready to apologize kind of, but Stacy's not in that mood. And so we waited a while, and it wasn't until we put you to bed and at nighttime and I say, hey, what happened with Fran? And she didn't really say much. And I just kept bugging her. And I said, what happened with Fran? And then she said, well, I told her I'm coming home and I'm packing Tyler up and we're done. We're done. Like, literally it flashed in my head at that point, like 1 year of marriage and done, like one and done. And so I'm like, so what'd she say? And Fran said, honey, you're not welcome home without Raul. And literally I just broke down and started crying. Like, Fran rescued me. Like, in that moment of me ruining her daughter, Fran said, you're not welcome without your husband. And so Stacy, when Stacy said it, I'm crying because it's a rescue moment, but I didn't know how to describe it. And Stacy's crying, so we start hugging. And then we just like, wow, that amazing thing. And I couldn't wrap my head around she really she really thinks I'm her son. Like, this isn't like a stepson. This isn't like an outlaw son, that kind of stuff. So in that moment, we went upstairs and we just laid in bed and prayed. I don't remember exactly what we said, but we decided, like, this is stupid. Like, this is married for life. Like, this is a covenant. And she told Stacy some of those things, and Stacy shared them with me.
There's no option.
There's no option. Like, you guys are married for life. Like, you're one flesh. How can you separate you two apart? Like, God has bonded you together and stuff like that. And Fran's really good at just calling out scriptures. And so then Stacy's sharing that stuff with me, but I still couldn't wrap my head around, like, she rescued me. So, like, in the times as a kid when I'd be, getting beat up by my stepdad or whatever, my mom would come home and I'd tell her, and she would say, "I'm sorry, honey," and she'd give me a kiss, and then she'd go back to work, because literally we had alcoholic stepfathers, father figures. So they didn't have a job. Like, they couldn't keep a job. So my mom's working 3 jobs. So I know my mom tried to understand, tried to rescue, but she did what she knew how to do, which is to work her butt off to pull us out of welfare. And so, my mom tried, and so she would kiss me and hug me and then go. But in the moment, it didn't feel like the same. This was the first time in my life, like, I felt like somebody went to bat for me, so much so that I could feel like wounds leave me. It's hard to explain, like, this heaviness, and all of a sudden, boom, like, wow. And it made me cry.
Comfort and love.
There's a deep, deep nurturance, and she wasn't even there. You know what I mean? Friend was so amazing. Even though we'd come home into town even after that, and by the way, her and Jerry were really good. They never brought it up, ever. We went home like a couple weeks later, and no one mentioned a thing. I thought for sure I'd get a lecture, or like, "Hey, you can't treat my daughter that way."
Yep.
But nothing. They didn't say a word. Just, they handled it in the moment and then let it go. And so it really taught us to kind of like process in the moment and let it go. But that's the nurturing side of being the knight in shining armor. And since then, and again, I didn't have the words for it, but just like, man, she was on my side. So I've always tried to work on being on Stacy's side. I've always trying to work on being on your side, the kid's side, just that whole concept. So the I don't know model, the IDK model came out of life experiences and also experiences in the clinic. I've been teaching this to families and people, especially people who are involved in a dating relationship, that they think, man, this could be the one,
Yep.
Because you really got to push through those pieces. Because if you follow this I don't know model, and you're doing it 100% right, and the other person still isn't coming around, then they're not ready. They're broken. Their wounds are too deep. You can't heal them. They need like a mother figure, a father figure. They need somebody like that. And in all honesty, Jesus healed my father wounds, and Fran started the mother wounds there. And then me and my mom, and my mom's saved now. She's a Christian. During those moments, she was still raising kids at home and running 3 jobs, and so she wasn't saved then. My mom has done literally, 180-degree turn, and so she's an amazing, grandma. But in that moment, I didn't blame my mom. I just didn't have it.
Yep. I know for me in the night, in this one, there's a switch that goes on unintentionally. I think that when you're dating, that mindset is constantly there, right? Do all these things, win her over. She's on the same way. She wants to let me know that she loves and cares for me, and we're constantly trying to one up.
Yeah.
And then you get married, and that still kind of goes on for a while. And then it just, over time and kind of getting comfortable, that whole doing that kind of just fades away. And then you bring kids into the mix. And so it's almost like going back to your first love, going back to the original piece of winning her over. And it's doing that in a regular basis. And then this applies more at doing that in the midst of fights.
Correct.
Right? And doing
Correct.
that in the midst of her throwing darts at you, you still are trying to win her over. I remember there's a couple times just recently when me and Elisa got in a little fight, kind of just don't talk about it until the kids go to bed. I see there's a bunch of dishes. So in my mind, I just think, we can't talk right now, but let me at least show her that I'm sorry. And so I started doing the dishes. And just by that aspect alone of me doing the dishes, that was my night moment for her. It switched everything in the conversation. It
Correct.
brought all of our emotions down. I got, a little love feeling inside of me because I was trying to serve her. She received that, and it just brought all the conversation and the darts to another level. Now put the kids down and we could communicate on a, non-flared up emotional level.
Yes. So
simple things like that.
Simple
is what
things.
You're talking about.
So if we break this down to like the basis of who we are as humans, we're energy. We're a shell, and we carry energy, and that's why when we die, our soul gets lifted up, our spirit gets lifted up to heaven. So the idea that when you get to a relationship, we're always in this needy feeling mode of I need. So you suck the energy right out of your mate, and your significant other feels drained. And that's not how you should feel in a dating relationship. In a dating relationship, you're pouring in, regardless if you get anything back. You're pouring in, you're pouring in, you're pouring in. And your answer to figure out if she's going to be somebody to keep or he's somebody that you should stay with is, does he receive love? If you can receive love, you're ready for a relationship. If you can't receive love, and this was me, I pushed Stacy away the more she tried stuff. She'd give me love notes. She would try this stuff, and I'd be like, "You don't even love me. How can you love me?" I was ready to marry Stacy right away. Like literally, like after we found out you were born, I'm like, "Let's get married," but because I knew, and she really pushed me away a little bit because she didn't know. I mean, think about it. You got this non-Christian dude with a bad reputation who's dyslexic, and he's got probation, and he's got no dad, and it's just like all these things.
And you just knocked her up.
Bro.
Yeah, I would have took a little bit more time trying to figure out if you were the one. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I totally get it, right? But I chased her pretty hard for that.
Sure.
But here's the thing. I couldn't receive love. Like, I honestly believe, like, okay, let's say we were 21.
Well, yeah, you can't love unless you love yourself.
Right. So if we were 21 and she's pouring into me like that, I still would have been ready to marry her, but I wasn't ready. Because I couldn't love myself. I couldn't understand why she loved me, and she couldn't put it into words. Just like I know. Like, what do you mean you know? What is it about me? So when you're beat down your whole life about, well, you suck at this and this and this in your whole life. Like, literally, you come up with a trophy. It's like, oh, you guys played freaking losers or something like that, So all of it, and so she'd be like, and she'd give me these notes. I'd literally rip the notes up. I'm like, words are fake. Words are cheap. Like, you have to have action. Because every time somebody promised me something, they broke it, literally. And so she'd come in with these love words, and I didn't even know. I was like, get away. So she was reluctant because she was pouring into me like nobody ever in my life, and I wasn't receiving it. So even though she didn't have the language, like, hey, he can't receive love, she would just be like, something's weird. Like, why do our relationship's like this and like this and like this and like this? And I'm like, I don't know, you don't talk. Well, because I'd poke her to ask these questions, and she'd push away. But, knowing what I know just a few years in, I'm like, why can't I receive love? When my wife gives me a compliment, why can't I take it? Do you know what I mean? And it's really because I didn't accept me. I didn't work through. Why? Because nobody had ever rescued me. I fought my way out. I was still in survivor mode. Like, I can't trust you. My love was, let me see how much I can take, and then I'll make the decision if you love me. I never believed that she loved me, so that put us in this really hard situation, right? And all the time, my wife was trying, or Stacy, as a girlfriend even, was trying to rescue me. I never gave her credit. Fran was the first person I gave credit to rescue me because I felt it. And it wasn't even like I knew what it was. I literally just started bawling. So this knight in shining armor thing really, so we go back to these wounds. The knight in shining armor piece is the only thing that can take that frailed exit wound and start to heal it back and tape it together and glue it. It's like literally Fran reached down and took a pussy sore that nobody ever touched and literally cleaned it up and made it good. And I was like, wow, how does that even happen?
IDK, intent. Find the positive intent in all relationships and all circumstances. Don't throw darts. Make sure you're not throwing darts. No darts. And knight in shining armor. Save your spouse or significant other or anyone in that relationship as much as possible.
Correct.
Sweet. Well, as Marshawn Lynch said,
Go take care of y'all mentals. Go take care of y'all mentals.
you got to manage our mentals moment this week, an action step that we can help applying this to our life.
Absolutely. So the action step to manage y'all mentals is nurture first. Nurture first. So when you're stuck on the I, you don't know intent, whatever, you don't know what to do, go nurture. So go try to hug her. Okay, she slammed the door. Well, then go do the dishes, right? Go fill her car up with gas. Go wash her car for her. You can always still do something with a nurturance step, okay? Step 2, you're throwing darts and you realize you're hurting her. You walk in, you give nurturance. Nurture wins every single level. The level 3, the knight in shining armor, is 100% nurturance. So when you don't know what to do, nurture first. And here's what I'll tell you.
And it's not nurture how you receive nurture.
No.
Because what I want to do is go hug, kiss, you know what I'm saying, little smoochy. And she's like, go do the dishes.
Correct.
Show me that you love me, or show me, it's nurturing how she receives or how your
Correct.
spouse receives or significant other receives that.
So you nurture how they want to receive that love, right?
Nurture and love.
Nurture love. Kisses, smooches.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes you get rejected. That's okay, though. Hey, before we leave you and you continue with your morning, afternoon, or evening, we want to remind you always that there are 2 times to be great: when you feel like it and when you don't. Tune in next week as we bring on a guest speaker My mom.
What?
Let's
Stacey's
go.
coming?
Stacy
Let's go.
Sanchez, my mama.
Level up this
is
podcast.
in the building. She's going to replace you on the show.
Wait, what? I'm not here?
Upgraded you.
Fired?
You're out. Got
Bruh,
the boot.
I thought we was
And she's going to tell us her side of the story, the truth behind how she went to being a teen mom, also how her parents responded coming home and saying, hey, I'm 16 and pregnant. So if anything we talked about today spoke to you on any level, man, leave us a comment in the sections below. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell. Let us know any questions, comments, or concerns you have. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review. Let us know how much you love our podcast. We love you, and as always, renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation. We love y'all.
I love you. Peace.
I had to realize what's inside of me. For all of the people that lied to me. For all of the people that said I would fall off. Oh, boy, what a time to be alive. I wrote this for everyone, feel like they counted out. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself it's time to be who I am now. Greatness.